We're the Islanders head coach, Jim Hulton. Jim, the QMJHL Draft is wrapped up last weekend. Your first pick came in the third round with Emil Alexandro Lemieux-Goupil. Not a lot of people know about him. Played in Ontario last season. Just what can you tell us about the player you got?
Well, he's a bit of a throwback in terms of style. He's a rugged, stay-at-home defenseman who likes the physical side of the game. When we interviewed him, his value system centered around blocking shots, closing plays off quickly, and those are music to our ears because that's an element that we want to add to our club.
Now, the second pick you took was Charles Albert Pouliot, a player that played with Emil Alexandro. They knew each other right away whenever he came up for the interview. So was it a plan to draft a guy that had played with him before?
No, in fact, it was an unknown to us as well. We didn't realize until after we got talking with both the young men that there was a relationship there in the past. And with Pouliot, he's a guy that we think can score goals down the road. You know, another 6-foot guy that really seems to be coming into his own, and we think with another year under his belt, he can probably come in and provide offense down the road.
Next up, we had Benedito Antonio Massi. A bit of a mouthful there, but a lot of scouts I heard were high on this man. So what can you tell me about the player the Islanders got there?
Real good foot speed. I think, again, a guy who's probably going to provide offense down the road. And I think the one separating factor that he has is his speed. Can back lead people off. And I know it's a cliche, but we were surprised that he was still there at that point in the draft. So we're hoping that we got fortunate with that one.
And then next up, Island-born player that a lot of people took notice of. The only Island-born player that came out of the draft for the Islanders was Rowan Walsh. So what about Rowan do PEI fans already know, and what can they expect for him to come with the Islanders?
Well, I think Rowan's a kid that comes from good bloodlines. His dad played in the OHL and was a real solid junior hockey player. And I think the thing that impressed us over the course of the season was the improvement that Rowan made. You know, it jumps off the page when you see his size. He's already 6'2", and it looks like a guy that can play up and down your lineup. And I think will take on a very prominent role on the midget team this year. So we're hoping he continues his development the similar fashion that he did this past year.
Now, two American-born players came into this draft for the Islanders, and Jude Huron and Martin Sullivan. Are those players expected, you mentioned, to come to camp, or are they expected to maybe put in a bit of a role here in camp and potentially make a push for the team?
Yeah, we had conversations with both parties prior to the draft, and Kevin Dickey, who does a lot of our U.S.-based scouting, had really forged a relationship with the Martin family, so he's committed, Sully's committed to coming for 48 hours, and Jude Huron, Jude's a nice story, has roots here on PEI, so was excited to be part of the Islanders organization moving forward. And again, he's another guy that's going to commit for 48 hours. Neither one of them are probably in the plans for this coming season, and both will have options south of the border, but at least the conversation is going to start with both of them.
And then another big name coming down later in the draft was Cape Breton Eagles head coach's son, Caden Robitaille. Now, Caden obviously has that lineage of QMJHL action and a father who went pro. What about him excited the Islanders about grabbing him late?
Potential. I think if you look at Caden, he's a boy that grew up down in Hershey, Pennsylvania. He has only played up here in Canada for the last 3 or 4 years, but seems to be improving with every year. As you said, bloodlines are important. We talked about it with Walsh, and I think the same thing with Robitaille. Caden knows what it takes to have success at this level, having grown up around his dad. And again, I think we're just excited to see what the future potential might be.
Now, speaking of Massey, how he kind of went later in the draft than everyone was expecting. A guy that you guys got with the last pick, Isaiah Rogerson, was kind of in a similar boat from my understanding of what scouts were telling me. So was grabbing him with your last pick just a really nice grab for the Islanders to get that late?
Well, it was, and I think every year in every draft, whether it be at this level or even the National Hockey League, you see certain names that slide without any rhyme or reason, and I think Isaiah falls into that category. I mean, this is a really good player. Again, exceptional foot speed, I think, is the one element that steps out for him, and so it was pretty much a no-brainer when he's still on your list in the 14th round, and we're excited. We think that could be, a steal for us down the road, so it all depends on his progression, his maturation as a player, but as I said, he's got the foundational skill of that speed that it's hard to teach.
Now, was picking up him and Massey just a really key moment for the Islanders to go along with the draft? How you guys were kind of building, more so physical, more so speedy, and bigger bodies?
Well, and I think depth. I think when you don't have your first and second round picks, you've really challenged your scouting staff first and foremost. So for us, it was more what we refer to as sub boxes. We're looking for character. We're looking for guys who are going to fill certain roles in the future. So I think there was logic to each pick. I think size was one of the priorities, and I think depth. And again, in order to play at this level, something has to be a separating factor. Some people it's size, some people it's speed. And overall, I think we were really happy with the body of work.
And as you mentioned, they're really happy with the body of work. So coming out of it with the picks you had, obviously nothing on day one, but overall, out of the 13 picks that the Islanders did have on day two, how happy and how pleased are you with the outcome that you guys came out with?
Oh, very happy. I think considering the fact that, hats off to our scouting staff. They did a terrific job. Again, a little bit hamstrung with a lack of picks, but Gupo was one of the kids. I think we had a list of 4 after the first round that we had our fingers crossed that at least one of them was going to be there, and he was the first on our list. So to start the day off that well, I think bodes well for us. And again, we went in every year. We go in hoping to get bigger. Some years it's achievable, other years it isn't. Fortunately for us this year, we were able to achieve that goal.
And speaking, looping back to Goupil here, a guy that on the CSR list last one they put out was pretty low on it. How did he jump up into the 3rd round, and what kind of made him a priority selection for you guys?
Well, I think Central's just a starting point, and I think there's 18 different lists on draft day, and all that matters is we probably had a little bit more intel on him. We have Rob Ridgely, who scouts for us in Ontario, had a number of viewings. I'd had a number of OHL people reach out to me talking about how well this young man played and what his future potential might be. So perhaps we had a little bit better read on than some other teams, but at the end of the day, we prioritized him on our list much higher up than a few other teams, and we were fortunate enough to get him.
And now afterwards, the reception that took place for the Islanders and the players and their families, how nice was it to kind of get a gauge on what those families were like and where these players come from?
Well, it's terrific. It's nice to be able to celebrate the moment with families, because all we see sometimes is just the player, but we forget that there's a lot of elements that go into making a player successful. It takes a village to raise a child. It's an old adage, and it takes a big family to raise a successful hockey player. And everybody can breathe a sigh of relief. It's over with. They know where they're going, and it's really enjoyable to meet the families along the way and see the joy in their faces and the experiences that they've gone through. So something that we always cherish.
And finally, out of the 13 players that were selected by the Islanders, is there hope that maybe a few of these guys could potentially crack next year's roster?
I'm not sure about that. I think we're hoping to build a strong enough roster that we don't have to force feed anybody into our lineup. I think more mistakes are made by rushing players at this level than by waiting, and we want to make sure that our guys are primed and ready when they do step in. So for me, this is more of a futures draft, but we also leave the window open, and we believe in competition for spots at training camp. So the floor is open, so to speak.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Jim, and congratulations on another successful draft.
Thanks, my pleasure.
Thank you.